What if I told you that one of the most dangerous people you'll ever meet isn't the obvious villain, not the narcissist, not the tyrant, not even the manipulator you see coming from a mile away? No, the most dangerous person might be the one who understands your feelings better than you do, the one who mirrors your pain, speaks your language, earns your trust, and then uses that trust to control you. This is not science fiction. It's not exaggeration. It's one of Carl Jung's most chilling insights into the human psyche. He didn't use the phrase dark empath, but what he uncovered in his work on the shadow, the persona, and the unconscious pointed to a haunting reality. Empathy, when fused with manipulation, can become a weapon, a silent, surgical one. And the people who wield it don't just destroy others. In the process, they often destroy themselves. Jung believed we all have a shadow, a part of us we repress, deny, or refuse to see. It's where our anger, envy, pride, and fear live. But it's also where our unlived life hides. The power we never claimed, the rage we never expressed, the truth we never spoke. Now imagine someone who has met their shadow, not to heal it, but to harness it. Someone who has felt deeply, suffered quietly, and learned how to read people like books. This person doesn't lack empathy. They master it. They know how to cry with you, sit with you, celebrate you. But behind their attentiveness is a predator's patience. Because while they understand your pain, they haven't transcended their own. They've just learned to use it, like camouflage. And that's the dark empath, the wolf wrapped in warmth. The manipulator who doesn't dominate you with force, but seduces you with understanding.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Here's the terrifying part. They don't even have to be evil. In fact, many dark empaths believe they're helping. They justify their control as protection, their deception as necessary, their silence as wisdom. And because they're so emotionally intelligent, so attuned, so human, they get away with it. We trust them. We open up. We give them the keys to our most sacred spaces. And by the time we realize what's happened, we're trapped in a psychological maze we can't escape. Jung warned us about this, not in the language of internet psychology, but in the language of archetypes. The healer who becomes a tyrant, the teacher who becomes a puppeteer, the lover who becomes a jailer. The danger isn't that they feel too little. It's that they feel too much, but refuse to transform. Let me ask you something deep. Have you ever been manipulated by someone who claimed to love you? Not the obvious kind of abuse. I mean the subtle erosion of your will, the way they made you doubt yourself, little by little. The way they always seemed to know what was best for you, but somehow you ended up smaller, quieter, more confused. That's the signature of the dark empath. They don't break you with cruelty. They reshape you with care. They use your empathy against you. And unless you've met your own shadow, unless you've confronted your own darkness, you won't even see it happening. That's what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. In other words, if you don't know your own darkness, someone else will use it to control you. But this isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about asking a harder question. Am I ever the dark empath in someone else's life? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. We all have a shadow. We all have motives we don't fully admit. We all have moments where we play the role of the helper, the listener, the guide, not out of pure love, but because it gives us power. And if we're not careful, we become the very thing we fear. That's the real terror of Jung's discovery. That evil doesn't always look like evil. Sometimes it looks like us on our best day, when we're calm, composed, compassionate, when we're saying all the right things, when we believe we're the hero. And in those moments, the shadow smiles, because it knows the most dangerous mask is the one we don't know we're wearing. The mirror and the maze, how the shadow uses empathy to trap the soul. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious is not just a reservoir of forgotten memories or repressed emotions. It's a living, breathing intelligence. It speaks through dreams, projections, sudden fears, strange attractions, and empathy, when unconsciously driven, becomes one of its sharpest tools. That's the paradox. Empathy feels like light, but in the wrong hands or in the wrong psychological state, it becomes a mirror and a maze. It reflects back what others want to see, not what is true. The dark empath uses this reflection not to connect but to trap. They sense your internal landscape, then construct a version of themselves that fits it perfectly, not because they genuinely resonate, but because they know that identification is influence. By appearing as your mirror, they bypass your defenses. And once that happens, your soul is no longer your own. It's being subtly edited, emotionally reprogrammed. What makes the dark empath so terrifying is that they often don't know they're doing it. Just like you, they have wounds. Just like you, they crave connection. But somewhere along the way, their inner child made a decision not to heal, but to survive. To become what others needed, even if it meant losing themselves. Over time, this survival strategy became a personality, then a superpower, then a prison. Jung warned us, when we don't confront our wounds, we become them. We start building our identity around our pain. And when empathy becomes a weapon to avoid rejection, avoid powerlessness, avoid confrontation, it stops being empathy. It becomes manipulation in disguise. The dark empath doesn't say, "I want to control you." They say, "I just want to help." But underneath that help is a need, to be needed. And that need, if left unconscious, slowly becomes a form of emotional enslavement. Ask yourself this. Have you ever wanted to help someone so badly that you ignored their boundaries? That you made decisions for them? That you stayed in their life not because they asked, but because you couldn't let go? That's the shadow of the empath. And it's not always malicious. It often feels like love. But love without freedom is not love, it's control. Jung believed that true empathy requires individuation, the process of becoming whole within yourself. Because only when you're whole can you meet someone fully, without needing to fix them, save them, or reshape them. The dark empath skips this process. They become experts in you, but strangers to themselves. That's why their relationships often feel intense, magnetic, even transcendent until they don't. Until you start to feel suffocated, confused, disoriented. Not because they flipped overnight, but because slowly you realize the connection was never equal. You were being studied, not seen. The ultimate trap is this. The dark empath makes you feel more known than anyone ever has. And in a world where most people are starving to be understood, that feeling is intoxicating. But it comes with a cost. Because what you reveal becomes data, and what you need becomes leverage. Jung would say this is the shadow at its most sophisticated, not violent, not aggressive, but seductive. It whispers, "I understand you," while quietly shaping your identity to serve its own unconscious agenda. And unless you've done the deep, brutal work of self-awareness, you will fall for it. Not once, maybe not even twice, but repeatedly. Because the dark empath doesn't show up as your enemy. They show up as your soulmate. And that's why they're so hard to resist and so hard to escape. How to burn through empathic manipulation and reclaim your power. Carl Jung didn't believe we were doomed to be ruled by our shadows. He believed we were called to integrate them. And this is where the journey turns inward. If you've ever been caught in the web of a dark empath, if you've ever felt your identity slowly eroding in the presence of someone who seemed to get you more than you got yourself, then the path forward is not revenge, not resentment, but illumination. You must become the flame, not to burn others, but to see clearly. Because once you've been manipulated through your own emotions, you realize something profound. Your greatest vulnerability is also your greatest weapon, self-knowledge. The more you know your patterns, your wounds, your needs, the less power anyone has to use them against you. The dark empath thrives in the fog of unawareness. But the moment you shine the light inward, their spell begins to break. This is why Jung's process of individuation is so powerful. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. It's about dragging every unconscious motive, every unhealed fear, every compulsive need into the light and saying, I see you. Because until you do that, you cannot tell the difference between love and control, between empathy and manipulation, between healing and codependency. Becoming the flame means you stop outsourcing your emotional safety. You stop waiting for someone to validate your worth. You stop letting other people's perceptions define your reality. You become sovereign. And in that sovereignty, you become unmanipulatable. Because now, when someone mirrors your pain, your joy, your story, you don't just feel understood. You observe, you discern. You ask, is this resonance or is this strategy? Let me ask you something uncomfortably honest. Do you know who you are when no one is watching? Not the version of you that's shaped by others' needs. Not the performance, not the persona, but the raw, unedited self. If you can't answer that with clarity, you are vulnerable, not because you're weak, but because you're unanchored. And dark empaths seek the unanchored. They sense instability and move in like emotional architects, ready to build a version of you that serves their unconscious needs. That's why your healing isn't just about feeling better. It's about becoming unshakable. Jung would say that the more you integrate your shadow, the less anyone else can weaponize it. The more you own your guilt, your fear, your trauma, the less anyone can use it as leverage. You become the one holding the mirror, not the one trapped inside it. And here's the paradox. The more self-aware you become, the more truly empathic you become. Because now, your empathy isn't about control. It's about presence. It's not about fixing. It's about witnessing. And that kind of empathy, the clean kind, the kind that doesn't need to be needed, is what breaks the cycle. The dark empath is born from pain, from survival, from the belief that love requires control. But when you become the flame, you prove that love requires nothing. It just is. It holds space. It respects boundaries. It lets go when it must. And in doing so, it reclaims its power. That is the final step Jung invites us to take, not to fear the dark empath, not to destroy them, but to outgrow their world. To become so whole that manipulation has no place to land. So conscious that even the most subtle traps are seen for what they are. Shadow illusions, powerless in the presence of light.